When you see someone like Trump bragging about how profitable they are,
because I don't need anybody's money. It's nice. I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second.
what they're also bragging about is how much lower they're paying their workers than what those workers need and deserve. And so what we should actually be bragging about are the people that have made working class wages and record wages possible, which are union leaders, workers, and everyday people that are standing up and knocking on their neighbor's door to demand a better world. We should not be rolling back child labor laws so that 13-year-olds can work back-breaking jobs because there isn't enough of a labor force. I mean, truly, the reason this is happening is very closely connected to anti-immigrant policies that are keeping our labor force low, that are helping drive inflation and prices up because we don't have workers able to do these jobs and produce these goods. And instead of opening up children to abuse and having those children having to work because their parents aren't making enough money either, we can work on increasing wages and actually expanding our path to citizenship so that people aren't living in the shadows and being forced to take undignified work. I mean, it shows that I think labor movements are resurging in a way that actually threatens the status quo. And when you fight power, power fights back. So it's not a coincidence that these companies are going after the NLRB, because for the first time in a long time, the NLRB is demonstrating that it can actually influence outcomes and really assert power for everyday people. And so we really need to pay close attention to that. We need to recognize that and really demonstrate that any amount of power that we have, we're going to use and we're going to try to expand it. The core of what being in a union is about fighting for your dignity and saying we're not going to accept being priced out of our home. We're not going to accept bad health insurance. We're not going to accept not being able to afford to live because our job isn't paying us enough. It's to say the cost of labor is the cost of living a dignified life. And all the time, businesses, when the price of limes go up, it's because the cost of producing that lime has gone up. And the cost of living a dignified life has gone up with the rate of inflation and everything else. And it is up to a union and being part of a union to assert that and to say, this is what we're going to accept and we're not going to accept less. And when we come together and we all say that, then these massive corporations that are making record profits and delivering those in record compensation to CEOs that are not working the back-breaking jobs that these bartenders, that these cleaners, that all these workers that actually make these companies possible, that we have to rebalance that. And when we rebalance those wages and shift them back to everyday people, then we actually restore the American dream. Because this isn't just about a job, this is about who we are as a society. We just came off of a year where a lot of different unions have mounted successful strikes and victories. And every single time, companies that are making record profits have the same story about how somehow they can't afford to pay their workers when they're making more money than they've ever made before. And so we've heard this story. We know that the cost of labor is the cost of a decent living wage in order to be able to afford housing and food and healthcare and your basic essentials. And so this is skilled work. It is essential to the economy of Las Vegas. And it's a core part of really setting the stage for workers' rights across the country. It's enormously important. You know, a lot of times you will hear people talk about hospitality work as though it's low skill, But when you actually have that job, you realize how incredibly skilled it actually is. The amount of knowledge, the amount of sophistication that it takes to do this work fast, effectively, in a way that makes an entire restaurant, hotel, casino run, like a well-oiled machine. That takes an enormous amount of skill, and it takes an enormous amount of recognition that's skill. And so I just think it's necessary and it's needed, because this myth that these industries or these jobs are low skill is really just, it's a story that is told in order to keep wages low for everyday people.